The LCS Challengers League is brought to you by Turo, the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. Find your drive.
Subway's now slicing their meats fresh. Try a new deli hero from the Subway series and taste the difference for yourself.
Hello everyone, welcome back to LCS Challengers League Summer 2023 Promotion Tournament. Everything good is worth waiting for, and honestly, Magical, I think that first game was worth waiting for.
Yes, that was definitely an amazing game. Like, craziness from, what was it, the 15-minute mark, just absolute shenanigans everywhere. 40-minute game where somehow Winthrop ended up coming back in a game that they were 8,000 gold behind in. You couldn't ask for a better game to start off the day.
Yeah, I mean, we just get to see it over and over again. Winthrop have been playing so many games from behind throughout the course of last chance qualifier, or just open qualifiers, and now moving into the promotion tournament again. Being behind is just their comfort zone. It doesn't matter how far behind you are, as long as you're willing to continue to punish all the mistakes that Supernova make.
Yeah, because this game definitely looked scary for Winthrop for a good amount of time, especially to Supernova getting the first pair. And even if Winthrop was able to take the buffs away from them, but going into our Toro Key drive, there's one moment in particular that I thought was actually pretty important for Winthrop when we talk about stopping the bleeding. And this was the second Baron that came along Magical, because I feel like this was where we got to see a little momentum kind of turn.
Yeah, it really was, because you see the initial look there from Supernova, but Trevor's already below 50 because he got chunked out earlier, and so they don't really have that engage that they could rely on. Like, you see him right there, goes in, has to go into stopwatch immediately. They didn't layer up the equalizer perfectly, and then worst of all, so many members of Winthrop were inches away from death. Literally, one of these members falls, and Supernova wins this fight, but because 4 of them survive with so little health, they're able to throw it back at Supernova, commit this dive afterwards that then sets them up for their first Baron of the game.
Yeah, I always knew Winthrop were good dancers, but just watching them throw it back yet again has just been fantastic to watch coming out from this squad. Just seeing what they're willing to do and how quickly they're able to identify how they can find their way to Sketch in these fights was honestly a real treat to watch. And you get to see that even though Sketch had so much money, he was actually out-damaged by his opponent. Mobility still doing more damage here on the Zarya because of how much longer they were living in these fights.
Can we talk about this gold grab for a second? Because, oh my goodness, Winthrop, coming back from this.
I mean, it was literally them down, like I said, 8k gold at one point, and then coming back in that game and just finding these skirmishes that just somehow worked. I think also Trickster with that Smite Steal that they had on the third Baron of the game, that kind of keeps them alive and keeps some of their hopes still going so they can get the third Dragon of the game for themselves. They can push back, get a little bit of gold for themselves. Winthrop, just well played.
Honestly, it really has been. So now, while we're waiting for our teams and players to get set back up for the next game in the series to see if Winthrop can be taking this upset into, we of course have our Subway halftime refresh. And for this one, I feel like as a casting group, like we've kind of been at odds a little bit today with the plays, just in general, the general chaoticness that you two bring to the desk. So I thought this could be a good time to kind of realign and play the newly duo game. So I'm going to be asking Magical some questions about Joshi's opinions about these teams and these players. See how aligned you two are as a casting duo, okay?
Oh no.
Oh no. I only play one opening in chess, so we'll see if he can identify what that is.
All right, maybe we'll make sure to talk about the players, and if we get time at the end, we'll ask about the opening, all right?
I hope it's the traditional cat move, where you knock all the pieces
Got
over.
it. I'm really good at that one, actually.
Oh my goodness. All right.
What do you got?
The Magical. Who does Joshi think had the biggest performance in our game 1 of this series? It could be from any team, of course, but it does have to be the series. Make sure not to be answering until Joshi has certified written something down, all right?
Okay.
No cheating allowed over here.
Oh man, this is a hard one. This is actually a really hard one.
Especially with how the series went, right?
Right. This first game, there's a couple players. So I'm gonna go with Denethor.
Oh, it's hard to
Trevor. Ah. Nah, it's fair, because honestly, like, mobility could have been another one, because I think he played some of those later team fights really well. I think that Sketch could have been a good shout there.
There's a lot of good shouts. I think one of the reasons why it was hard for me to pick a single Winthrop player is because basically everybody had their moment.
Right.
Like, everyone had a moment, whereas I feel like Trevor had a lot of moments that
That's fair.
Unfortunately just
That's
the rest of his team weren't able to capitalize on.
Yeah, the reason why I thought it was going to be Denethor is just because there were some really crucial catches that he had on the Sketch that I think kept them alive and allowed them to play some of those fights later on that got mobility into those great positions. And that's the only reason why I didn't pick mobility, because he was someone else I was kind of thinking of, because those later game team fights he did so well on.
Yeah.
That was a hard one. That was a hard one.
I gotta put you guys through the ringer, all right?
Okay.
They're not gonna get easier from here on out. Don't worry. So
Okay.
the next one, looking back at the series, there's obviously quite a few big moments coming out from both squads, especially with Winthrop making that comeback. So which was, in Joshi's opinion, the most impactful moment in our game one of the series?
Most impactful moment.
Not making it. You two have just been off the rails all
Man,
day
this
today,
is-
so I have
yeah,
to
no,
really,
no,
really
yeah.
make you two work right now.
Oh man, because there's so many moments during that game that you could pick.
Most impactful, in Joshi's opinion.
I have really two answers for this one.
Okay,
But
I'm gonna go with the. Have you written it down?
I've written it down.
I'm gonna go with the third Baron, the one that Trickster steals, and it was a really close fight, but Winthrop were able to keep two of their members alive.
Close.
There's two.
Wrong Baron.
That was our Toro key drive right
Yeah.
there.
That's kind of why I didn't pick it, honestly, because I thought that he wouldn't choose the one that we picked for the Turo key drive.
I tried to help you, Alex. I tried to pick the easy answer. My other answer was actually like the very last fight when Supernova lost their minds and just died.
That's a really good way to describe it. You have a good way
Yeah,
to
I
approach
was like,
Joshi.
oh.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Who in this series, from either team, winning team or losing team, was the unsung hero? Someone who didn't necessarily get the praise that they needed to at the time,
see.
but you're thinking back to it, you're like, oh,
Unsung
damn.
hero.
Oh, because this is where I would have picked
Oh.
Trevor if he didn't already pick Trevor.
Now it's the mind games. Is he going to go back to Trevor? Is he picking someone else?
All right, I think.
Alright, hold on. I'm trying to make this dark enough to actually read.
It's been good. It's been good. We've been able to figure it out.
I'm gonna go with unsung
ready.
hero. I'm gonna go with Shookies.
Why?
Literally, I'll be honest. I have no reason.
Well, are you?
It was mobility. That was like who I was thinking of. Like, no, he's gonna trick me. He's gonna trick
Why am
me.
I trying?
Why is he trying to?
We're playing a team.
This is a team game, Alex. This is team game. You're on
I'm
the
not-
same team.
Same team.
There's no such things as teams in my world.
What?
All right, Joshi, you're saying mobility is your unsung hero. Why in this game one?
Honestly, like most of the issues that Winthrop did have in game one were not mobility's fault.
No.
Right? Most of the things that went wrong were things that were happening to other people, and he just kind of had to wait for his turn to actually play the game. But when he actually was in a position to play, he was kiting really well. He was consistently in a position where he could actually kite out and run down the players that he needed to. So honestly, he didn't do the super exciting thing, but he did everything
I'll tell
basically
you
correct.
why I didn't pick him, because it was unsung hero. And I
Yeah?
was just literally a moment ago saying how he was like the second other player on Winthrop I would have picked.
But magical. The key
Yeah, but
word
someone
is
also
in
didn't vote
Joshi's
for the same
opinion.
person for MVP, so you know.
All right. So I feel like I did not do a good job of aligning you two for this next upcoming
We're
series.
getting ready to throw hands
We're
here.
ready to throw hands over here, but I'm excited to see when they're throwing them hands back at Supernova because, of course, up one in the series. This is their opportunity to try and take the series in a 2-0, be one step closer to that promotion that these teams are looking for. Our draft is ready. Our match is soon on the horizon, so I'll see you two fighters later.
That's me. I'm a fighter, not a lover.
See, I usually play more like the wizards and the sorcerers. I don't really play the fighters in Baldgate.
The fighter classes suck. Like, they're so boring.
Exactly.
Like,
I'm not a fighter, to be honest. So, but let's look at this game. Let's look at our two fighters that we have here. Winthrop, that game, 40 minutes in, and oftentimes when you have a game like that where you are the one who lost, if you're looking over at Supernova, sometimes it's hard to reset your mental, right?
Yeah.
To be like, all right, it's a best of 3, forget about that game. Well, you were so close to victory. You were literally just right there, and unfortunately tripped at the finish line.
Yeah, honestly, the thing for me that stands out is it didn't feel as though Supernova was playing their own game, right? We started off at the very beginning asking for Quacker to play one of his Quackerisms. Instead, we got to see Rumble, and his Rumble was fine throughout most of the game, but it got put behind relatively early on because of him not reading where the jungle was properly early on in the game, and it really hurt Supernova's chances right off the bat. Now, I think if Supernova is playing Quacker on like the Olaf or the Renekton or something, they're going to have a lot more success in the exact same situations. And with all that in mind, I actually love the fact that Winthrop are taking 2 of the big champions that Supernova had some success on off the table in the Nocturne and in the Realm.
Yeah, I do like that. I think that these are good looks from Winthrop. And now it's left over some powerful picks that they were banning when they were on the red side. That Maokai, he let through, so they grabbed that immediately. Sejuani is the other champion that we've seen Music play a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the answer here.
And I do have to say, as we do see this Maokai coming through, it was one of, I believe, 2 champions who were 100% present yesterday. The other one being LeBlanc, and now as it is coming out here for Winthrop, that will give them a lot of control, and that is something that we didn't necessarily see from Winthrop around a lot of the setups for the objectives. It was oftentimes them not necessarily being prepared to go for all of those situations. They were just out team fighting once the fights actually started. But now, Supernova giving Trevor the other half of the Alistar Rel combo or the counter pick, and it will give them plenty of tools to once again go for these big flanks.
Yeah, no longer have to worry about that Rel being on the other. Well, even though you kind of pick the Rel, they picked the Alistar into Rel, but it doesn't matter. It's something that kind of has a similar function to Rel, the engage tool, being the one that kind of sets up the team. And I'm surprised to see this from Music. The Sejuani has been left open, but instead of going for that, has decided to play the Viego this time around, kind of turning the tables against Trickster.
Yeah, and I know one player had a lot to say about Music as well, going on to things like the Viego is, hey, you see this guy playing carries all the time in solo queue, but whenever you get him to the stage, he plays the most boring champions. He's playing the Maokai, the Sejuani, the Iron, these tanky things that you don't have the same kind of ability to carry on. If you're going to be playing these characters in solo queue, you got to be playing them on stage as well. And this is Music's chance to clap back a little bit at what Chad has been saying throughout the different interviews. But as we look at the composition so far, Supernova, they're mostly just relying on these 2 champions being very strong. I'm super surprised at the Alistar being their pick right off the bat because it commits them so hard to going for these dives after already seeing the Maokai.
Yeah, already seeing the Maokai, now a Nautilus on the other side. You have this Ari too, things that can kind of either keep you locked down or dash away from a lot of these fights. The non-committal engage that you have here for Winthrop, it feels like a similar identity to what we've been seeing from them. Not necessarily having to be the full engage for the team, instead being the team that can kind of answer that engage and push it back.
And I love this response coming out from Supernova, right? The reason why you pick champions in this slot when you are on the red side of the map is because you get to ban out the counter picks. And we already get to see that Supernova playing a little bit more towards the style that we have seen so much success from them over the course of the regular season. The Olaf getting picked here for Quacker, banning away the Camille, and I'm trying to think of what else we've seen from Denethor that would even be a counter pick to the same degree, and nothing really comes to mind of the champions that he's played. Like, Gwen is meh, the Renekton is meh, the Sante is meh, like they're all fine.
Yeah, they all do a serviceable job, but it's not quite that Camille, right? It's not quite that power that you have, and they're even taking away other things that they're just worried about kiting him back and making it difficult in these side lanes later on into the game. I kind of like this from Supernova. Even though they know that it's going to be sword onto this Ahri, they're just like, you know what, we'd much rather get that comfort pick for Quacker, the champion that he dominated it back in the summer promotion tournament with AoE, and even dominated part of the NACL regular split in summer.
Yeah, and as we wait for the next pick, I mean, I was hoping that we were going to get to see a Robbie Bob Victor come through as a response to the Ahri. Instead, it is going to be the Rise, a champion that we are starting to see climb a little bit in priority. We are starting to see it at all, which is a little bit worried considering where Worlds is right around the corner. But with this coming through, it does give a lot of tools for Supernova to try and just place players like Trevor into the middle of the enemy team. They can move around the map super effectively. And as we see both sets of solo laners come through, fascinatingly, it's actually the AD carries being last picked for both sides because they have both committed to the styles they do want to play. I'm expecting Azeri to probably come out here for the side of Winthrop, but they are still toying with the idea of a couple of different champs.
Yeah, the Zeri's really the one I'm thinking here for mobility. Kind of works with their team too, of kind of kiting around a lot of these fights, making it difficult for some of this engage from Supernova, especially because you do have champions that want to kind of chase you down with that Viego, with that Olaf. So having something that can skirt the battle a little bit more is nice, but then what is Sketch going to play? What is Sketch answer here into this Zeri Nautilus lane when you're showing the Alistar early on? That Draven that you're able to get that early kill on doesn't really look so good into this composition, doesn't really have that same power. We already saw the problems that it has against things like an Ahri and K'Sante, so they grab themselves the Sivir for extra chase down.
Yeah, interesting pick to be coming through here for Supernova, right? You have some tools, you're going to be clearing out waves super quickly, but the biggest thing is you're now going to be giving extra speed over towards Quacker. Now, the thing as Sivir, you don't do any damage for the first 2 items, right? Once you get 2 items, you get to start playing the game. Before that, you are just a movement speed boost for everybody else on the team. And so, both teams have really said, hey, it's a top lane fight, guys, the bottom lane, we're going to build static shiv, and we're going to be clearing waves for a little while. We'll see you at 25 minutes. And so, this is kind of what we were setting up from the very beginning. Quacker versus Denethor. Music and Trickster both need to come up towards the top side to make sure that there is a winning top lane for their team.
Especially because when you have an Olaf on the one of the sides, it's going to put you on that timer. If you can shut down that Olaf early on into the game, you don't have to worry about the split push later and getting outscaled that way. But then you look at what Winthrop have to answer, and it's just 2 tanks.
Tanks. I mean, you know, but they're pretty good tanks at the very least.
Yeah, it's good tanks, but we actually got to hear from Denethor on how he feels going up against players like Lunacia as well as against someone like Quacker.
I've played against Quacker and Lunacia a bit, both, and I feel like they're kind of on par. Or I feel like there's some better top laners to OQ as well, but maybe they've improved a lot.
Wow, that was quiet. It's like, yeah, they're okay.
Yeah, just
don't have any strong opinions.
No strong opinions one way or another. Sometimes, when you have, I almost feel like if you don't have a strong opinion one way or another, that's almost worse because you're just like, yeah, they don't even cross my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think the worst thing that I could hear if someone was like, hey, what do you think of this guy? They just go, who? I mean, that's kind of what it was, right? It's just like, who? Those, oh, yeah, they're okay. Right? Like, you got to leave an impression. It's why I keep talking about knees all the time. But as we start getting into this one, it is going to be Quacker yet again going with a combat summoner spell instead of the teleport. They are going to be starting it off with the ghost this time, and will be getting a little bit of vision down towards the bottom half, towards the blue buff, so they will see if Trickster does come towards the top side. So, with the junglers starting with mirrored clears on opposite sides of the map, it does mean that Music not going to be playing for anything towards the top half of the map. Instead, he's going to come down bottom early.
Maybe get an early summoner spell out of the spot lane, or try to get some control against Trickster, since they know that Trickster is going to be starting on the bottom side. But look at this, Quacker. Then how dare you not know my name? I'm going to bully you early on in this lane and make it really difficult for you to play against me, especially on my classic pick with this Olaf.
There's still lots of tools.
Nice flash.
As we already see a flash coming out from Trevor. We get to see a little bit more aggression coming out from opposite sides of the map, right? Music going towards the bottom half will create some opportunities for them to try and do something. But because Chookies and Mobility have already gotten this push, they're going to be invading towards the other side. They will see that Music has cleared all this out. And it looks as though they did catch a vision of him as he moves towards the top half of the map, clears out Wolves. So they know exactly where he is. And they even get the ward kill.
Yeah.
Broken.
Oh, man, they're getting everything in the spot lane. Mobility and Chookies looking really strong here against Sketch and Trevor. But Trickster, it's not even pathing around towards his blue buff. Instead, he wants to make an impact in this top lane, knowing this Olaf matchup so difficult for the K'Sante. So, even without him showing up, he didn't really need to be there because they got first blood.
That's the second time, though, that we do see this play towards the top side. Trickster once again getting the kill, or at least helping out in the kill in the top half of the map. And even though Denethor gets it without the assist, that is still enough pressure coming through that is going to be a terrible lane state coming through for Quacker next time he actually comes back. So Music will need to stick around to try and break the freeze that Denethor is trying to set up.
He's got to play around the top lane. He really needs to help out Quacker in this matchup and do something. But bot lane, having a bit of action back and forth. The Ghost has been popped by mobility. Just get out of danger as Sketch and Trevor did try to throw a little bit of might back at Winthrop.
Yeah, but you can see that most of the damage being done is actually being done by the supports in his lane, right? Yeah. They are just wailing away on each other. And the fact that Trevor is actually the lower one between the two in terms of HP does mean that Winthrop will be very comfortable coming into the next part of this fight. But at the same time, you do see Music going towards the top side, doing what he can to spot out Trickster and make sure that Quacker is not going to go down on the top side yet again. This wave, oh, that's brutal.
Oh, I actually think this is worse for Denethor right there. Had that undertow connected too, probably was going to be his death.
That's a flash coming out from Denethor as well, and now Trickster moving towards the top side of the map, going to be giving up some camps on the bottom side, but they will get spotted out. And even though it is going to be Denethor losing the flash, if they can commit this freeze,
Quacker,
they can find another kill.
Quacker, you should have seen that sapling. You know that Trickster is there.
They can't.
Yeah, what can he do? And he's gonna spot out. He's gonna show his face. There it is. Trickster showing up, and he goes, "Oh man, this is what I really wanted." Undertow connecting it, and a lot of damage onto Denethor. That's gonna be the sapling thrown out. Goes into the alcove to try to get away from damage, but that was a ward placed down by Denethor into that brush. So despite the fact that he was trying to get away from the vision, it's gonna be the kill going over to Trickster.
Very clean stuff. I love the fact that Denethor was just waiting for his abilities to come back off of cooldown so that he could just go in, get the crowd control down before Quacker actually has access to the Ragnarok. Honestly, really clean gank coming through from Trickster, but he's giving up a lot of farm in order to make this happen. Now Denethor needs to pay him back for the attention that has been paid here by Trickster, because Music with so much farm he's been warming up on all of these jungle camps already. He has leveled up enough that he is ready to start hitting some champions.
Yeah, but I kind of was wondering, with the two tanks in the top lane, how are they gonna kill a lot of this power that would come in from Quacker and Music? And the answer is just Denethor winning out in most of these skirmishes and Quacker playing a little bit too aggressively. Now he is far behind in CS. He comes back into lane, and while he has the two longswords, sure, it's a chain vest and a Shane for Denethor already early into this game, and there's not really any hope for Quacker to kind of win out when you're feeling the most powerful on Olaf.
As somebody who has played in competitive environments before, obviously not at this level, I understand what is going through Quacker's mind, right? When you feel as though the entire game is placed on your shoulders, you start taking risks in a lot of these games. Unfortunately, he's gotten punished for both risks that he's taken so far this game. He's not in a position where he can even get much of a lead.
Or is he? Because right now, he's just level 6 and he's diving while he was behind.
Woo! Oh my gosh, he needed that so much. If he goes down there again, it's terrible. But the fact that he is still overpowering Denethor in the 1v1 gives them some hope. This is what we were looking at, right? You need to start taking risks. If Trickster is there again, that is disaster for Quacker, but he's not. He makes the calculated play to try and punish Denethor while Trickster is away farming the other camps, and Music continuing to take away even more of the jungle.
Yeah, I did not think that was going to work out in the top lane. The bot lane, though, starting to work out for Winthrop, getting another flash out of Trevor. With mobility and Tricky's pretty low. Sketch, feeling like he could have stayed around a little bit longer if he needed to.
Could have tried, but either way, it is still some damage coming through. Still watching for another hook coming out from Chucky's. But even with all this, right, we said what we said. Even though it's been a bit more violent, it is still going to be these two AD carries waiting for their items to come in before they do much of anything. And so now Alex might get our first 2v2 up at the top side of the map, as we do see both Music and Trickster hovering around, potentially looking for an opportunity to play around this Rift Herald.
Well, Trickster is there again. First one on the call in the top lane, but fully spotted out by Quacker. And this time, he's not playing with fire. He understands That's not going to work out, but he doesn't have Ragnarok just yet. He's got that Ghost, but no Flash. A massive minion wave already stacked. Music, pretty good distance away from joining in. You got to be careful. They're looking for that engage underneath the turret with all out to drag him away, but they've got Music.
Nice.
Perfect timing to fight back. And right there, Robbie Bomb. He takes the round warp with the Heartbreaker. The tree about to be cut down.
Wow, so much money going over to Supernova. Immediately a great read coming through from Music to shut down the play that Winthrop is trying to go for. And finally, we get to see that Quacker, he's the natist in this one, right? He gets to see what he can do. Now that he finally has some gold, a Rift Herald is going to be picked up because you know that Winthrop cannot play for it at all. And so, Supernova, with all the ganks that have gone towards the top half of the map, are still standing tall in this one. And now is the question, does Quacker still feel like he's going to need to have to take risks in this game, or is he going to try and slow it down a little bit and leverage the advantage he finally has?
Well, we got to take a look at the replay, and you understand the initial play from Winthrop, but the problem is they just didn't have the full knowledge of where Music was.
Yeah, and as he comes around a great stun into the ultimate guarantees, Denethor can't do anything, and Robbie Bob even managing to outpace where Sword was in order to get a little bit of extra damage in, grab an assist for himself. He doesn't even lose anything as he goes back to the mid lane. He maybe loses a minion or two. Absolutely worth it every time to guarantee your topside wins that fight.
Yeah, nice realm warp there from Robbie Bob. Yeah, and then look at this. All this power. We were talking about the top lane and how important it was going to be at the beginning of this game. And every single bit of action for both teams has been centric around this top lane.
And we are starting to see yet again as they start looking for more opportunities.
Ooh.
Oh.
Looking for a cow. The cow realizes, dodges away, but he also understands there was no hope that he is about to be made into ground beef.
Is there?
Unless, of course, he can get out of this one. He's got to be careful, dodging away, but there's just too much damage from Winthrop for him to escape.
Too many people, too many friends coming up for Winthrop, and Trickster really needed that gold. He's been giving up so much of his farmer to try and make these plays happen, and now we get to see at the same time, Sketch has to back away from this bottom side of the map a little bit. He knows there are too many people in the jungle. He knows he is next on the menu. Supernova still going to be A-okay.
Oh, nice Ragnarok there to deny that all-out from Denethor. Quacker still really wants these fights here against Denethor early into the game, especially now that he's got the Tiamat, but there is a TP for Denethor, so he can always join in these plays, especially around the bot lane, as we see a little bit of a skirmish coming in into the river. The flash coming in from Robbie Bob, but a lot of damage on his sword.
Whoa.
The Heartbreaker gets the resets, and they gotta be careful. Mobility tries to get his damage back onto Music, but look at Trevor getting a lot of that engage, absorbing it all. The pull back in onto Mobility, no way out of there, and it's gonna be Supernova coming out ahead as Music. He still wants more. He wants everything in the kitchen sink to chase down Winthrop and say game one was a fluke. We are now fully in control.
You say it was a fluke, but it looks so much like game one again. It looks so much like what happened when Winthrop actually won. We got to see that Quacker went down a couple of times to the gangs, but then was able to bounce right on back. A couple of skirmishes go in favor of Supernova. They outplay this engagement coming through from Winthrop. I was expecting Denethor has a teleport up, likely going to be moving into this one, but again, Robbie Bob barely gets on out. The Viego starts getting these resets, and even though the Sivir damage is not the craziest thing, they get the damage onto the right target, and even as they grab mobility on the backside of that play, just a little bit more money going into Supernova's pockets. They have the lead now, but we saw what Winthrop's comfort zone is. It's playing from behind.
I think one of the big reasons why Denethor didn't TP into that play when we got to see the replay, there was not that ward back there that you see now. There were no places that he could really go to that would have easily gotten him into these fights. So maybe they thought it was already a doom play. Don't throw everything there and lose out on the top lane too, because then Quacker would just take the turret, so they have at least something that they can get back for themselves. Winthrop do get back on the map, and despite having lost out on that fight, it's not like they've lost completely. They still have some power. They can fight back against Supernova.
The strongest member in Quacker on the far side of the map still not going to be able to participate in the fight. There is a potential brawl brewing around this dragon. It would be Winthrop's second, but not able to pick that one up again. I mean, same thing has happened last time. Supernova got Dragon 2 after Winthrop got the first one. So many repeat themes in this game, and so the fact that Trickster is yet again 30 CS behind in the jungle and Music has been outperforming during these fights might be one of the big differences that we will see coming out for Supernova, especially considering how quiet music was in Game 1. I can't wait to hear the crescendo.
Yeah, he's definitely not quiet in this game. 3-0-2 now after farming up for quite some time in this game to get himself in a very powerful position. And as you were talking about the quote from Chad and how this guy plays in solo queue compared to how he plays on stage, we are seeing a lot more of that aggressive tendency that he has, especially with this Viego. And he's given a lot of tools now in this game to be that secondary carry or even the primary carry for the entirety of the team.
I would love to see that primary carry come through. At the same time, we are still seeing Sketch just having free time down here in the bottom side. Mobility and Chookies, like, they slightly won the lane in a lot of ways, but because of everything else that happened, the fights they were taking and the waves crashing into the bot lane turret, it's still a lot of money that has been picked up by Sketch, being the one alive to actually pick up the waves after the skirmishes were happening. And so, next
it's also a
objective
Sivir, right?
responding.
It's also a Sivir
Exactly.
lane. It's like, you're never actually going to push back a Sivir lane.
Yeah. At the same time, with the next objective spawning here in less than a minute, it is going to be a Rift Herald, and we already see both supports moving towards the mid lane, getting ready to fight for it.
Everyone's looking for that skirmish early on, especially here for Winthrop. Kind of need some of that gold back as tell that sword is starting to struggle a little bit more slowly but surely against Robbie Bob, as that's kind of how that matchup goes. The Ahri versus Ryze. Eventually that Ryze just gets enough mana that he can clear out the minion wave every single time he walks up to it. And as Ahri, you want to be the first ones moving around the map.
We haven't necessarily seen that from Sword, right? It was Robbie Bob who was able to move towards the top side faster for the skirmish, even though Sword was trying to stick to him like glue. But now, it is still going to be what actually happens around this next objective, and we are seeing that right now Sketch just moving towards the mid lane, was considering going down towards the bottom side, but neither AD carry. It'll be particularly important for the fight.
Ragnar was just looking for a blue buff on his own. Pops the Ragnarok early, but he's got to be careful. That's a lot of damage coming in on the sword as he's dashing over the wall, getting the shield, the flash coming in over the wall. The Quacker dodging away from everything with the flash coming in from Denethor to pick up the kill, but they got to be careful on the other side. Look at where they have Sivir. Sketch now joining the fight, mitigating a little bit of damage as Trevor absorbed as much as he could. They've got resets on the one, but they got to be careful. Denethor all out on the music, pulling him over the wall, tries to get away, but the shutdown for Sword. Trickster dashing back in, but dies to Sketch. A Sketch getting a little bit more damage on a Sword, but not going to be enough coming in from Sword to fight back against the Sivir, who instead will peel back to mid lane. Scrappy fight between the two teams.
3 for 2 going over in favor of Winthrop, potentially scrapping their way right back on in, and we again see Quacker taking so many risks, being a little bit too confident going in for that blue, but gets pinched off before the rest of his team is able to actually get there. And now, I mean, with the Rift Herald still available, there are opportunities to fight for everything else. We'll take another look at this one. It looked like it could have been Reset City for music in the fight, even with the fact that Quacker goes down relatively early, because Trevor getting really, really close towards going for some of these big plays, but he only gets one player. It's the tank. And unfortunately, even though Maokai is behind there, still very, very tanky. The question is, when does the next Q come up? Unfortunately, he doesn't get any relevant members. He does not get onto Sword, he doesn't get onto Mobility. They still have the damage necessary to chew through the rest of the fight. Even though Trickster goes down at the very end, it is still yet another opportunity here for Winthrop to come out ahead.
Yeah, barely coming out ahead, but still coming out ahead nonetheless. And getting some of that gold on some members that we were just talking about, needing to get that gold. Sword being one of them, as he's now gone from that 0-1 scoreline to 1-3. He's going to feel a little bit stronger. And even Mobility comes out ahead on that play, as he has now got the most gold, kind of fighting against music for that spot.
Honestly, the fact that Sketch is now becoming a big member of the team once again is fascinating, right? Again, they were not the most important member during the course of most of summer. But this series has been about whether or not Sketch can perform once they actually give him money. He unfortunately was not able to be in a position to play effectively in Game 1, but this time that he is on the Sivir, you have a very different mindset when you actually try and play this champion. You are really trying to skirt around the edge. You aren't quite as worried as trying to hit the priority targets, because they're going to be bouncing around between all these different melee champions. And so, Supernova, 8 seconds left before this next dragon actually spawns. They're trying to get there first, but they're already late.
A little bit late, and it's going to be Trevor absorbing a lot of the damage, but so is Shookies. And it's going to be support for support traded, or is Trevor going to survive? They got the reset to the dash over the wall. Music's going to survive as Olaf in the pit, but there's too many members focusing him. So it's going to be the trade. 1 for 1 after a long exchange as the flash comes in from Robbie Bob to survive. Not going to get the charm to land on a sketch, but you already took out some of the important members there for Supernova, no longer having that Olaf engage the fight for you.
But Quacker, he spent a lot of time not auto-attacking, even in the middle of all of those members. That is going to be another Dragon going over to Winthrop here in this game. And it feels as though the drops are starting to come out yet again. We said that playing from behind was their comfort zone. But mobility, we got to see that they buy enough time for him to be the main character of Game 1 in a couple of ways. Now, he's well ahead of the curve of where he was the first time around, and Supernova have not been able to get to him.
Now they're really struggling to get on top of this area, and that's kind of what we're talking about. When you look at this composition that Supernova have drafted for themselves, they have great chase down potential, but there are so many dashes for these carries out of Winthrop. Zeri can easily get over the wall and stay away from an Olaf and Viego. Same with Ari. Now top lane, Robbie Bob fighting against Denethor, and with Music right behind him, they don't even try to help out.
Well, that was weird. I was wondering how Robbie was going to try and take that if he just gets ulted on. The answer is he doesn't. Now, Sword?
Sword going to get the charm, landing onto Trevor, and without the dredge line connecting, it doesn't matter. They got the Everfrost. Blast Cone over the wall towards the Wolves, but you don't really have a good escape route here if you're Trevor. Instead, it's going to be Sketch trying to get a little bit of damage, and giving up the life, hunting over the wall. Mobility picks up the kill, but Olaf in the back line. He's chasing down Sword, who has no mana, but they got the lightning crash out of Mobility, and there's nothing that Olaf can do to cut them down. Instead, it is going to be Supernova on the run yet again from Winthrop.
Winthrop once again finding uncontested kills in all of these fights, and it's going over so much to Mobility. He's now 3-1-3, 2 completed items. There's enough melee champions here for him to rip apart later on in the game, and so much of this game has been whether or not Quacker and Music are actually playing on the same page, and yet again the answer is not really. They're trying to do different things at the same time, and Supernova, while yes, they still have a lead, it feels as though Winthrop is actually ahead the way that they are making plays.
Yeah, they're the ones that are proactive on the map. They're the ones setting up a lot of that vision control against Supernova and kind of containing them. It's weird to see that the gold is favoring Supernova just with how the play style has been for the two teams. Winthrop just feel like the far more confident team.
So Supernova, all of the morale that we were hearing about before, whether or not they would be able to bounce back, we have to note that while the delay, not their fault in the slightest, it does not help if you're the team that is feeling nervous, if you're the one that has pressure on you in a 20-minute Baron starting up from Winthrop. I don't think Supernova even realizes this is happening.
Not at all. They have no idea. There's going to be finally the blue trinket, so now they realize it is a slow take from Winthrop on that. But with that Realm War put down, it might scatter that Winthrop. They're looking for the re-engage. That's Quacker still not a part of the fight. Instead, they're getting a lot of damage onto Trevor, who tried to go for the engage with the Unbreakable Will, absorbing a lot of the pressure. But look at Quacker, still not pulling the trigger. Too late.
Sword
Dashing over the wall, but Sword has to dash himself. They're going to get the kill. Trickster's still alive. Looking for the resets. Music couldn't get it. Mobility's double kill. Make sure Winthrop come out ahead. The pullback in does not connect, but they got the pullback from Denethor for Mobility to continue to clean off Supernova. Mobility will finally fall, but he's got all the gold he possibly needs, unless Robbie Bob, can you pull off a miracle yourself? Looking for the dash, not getting the charm to connect, but there's a little bit of damage from the Rise, but the Rise, he'll take a triple kill for himself and finally fall. A delayed ace for Winthrop.
Robbie Bob, some much-needed clutch factor coming out here for Supernova, but unfortunately, it is still Winthrop who comes out ahead. And there are so many moments. Mobility stays alive for so long in these fights. Watch what happens when Quacker finally joins the fight in this one. He gets on top of so many of these low health members trying to get to Mobility, but he and Music, even though they're on the same page, don't have the damage. And then after that, when Denethor tries to go back in, it looks as though it's just the two of them trying to make something happen, but Mobility is skating right on over, finally finding the triple kill coming in for themselves. Robbie Bob with some heroics actually gets the way, denies the pentakill coming through, but Sword, having lived, comes back with a teleport, means that Supernova had no chance.
Not at all. And the only saving grace is Robbie Bob getting that delayed triple kill and killing Trickster. Well, yeah, the Baron probably wasn't going to be taken by Winthrop. They don't have as much control they can really get back onto this map afterwards. So it kind of keeps the game in an all right position for Supernova, but it still goes into what we were talking about before as we take a look at the subway damage last team fight graphic, where mobility and surprisingly Sketch actually doing a lot of damage in that fight too. But it's the confidence that Winthrop are still playing with all these fights.
They're still down a little bit of gold though, but they have control over the next Mountain Dragon. And Winthrop are, as you were saying, just the ones kind of making plays. They have a 3-item Zeri at this point in the game, well ahead of where Sketch
How do you
has
stop
been.
that? How do you stop mobility?
You get to him, right? There's not a lot of crowd control. The big question is, can Quacker get to him and stick to him, right? Because you have mobility now without the flash. He doesn't have the same tool to get away from Music and Quacker in these upcoming fights. And this next dragon must be fought without it.
Yeah, but he still has Ghost, and he still has Chookies, he's got Sword, Trickster, all defending mobility. Even if Quacker's able to get on top of him, I just don't see a way that he can actually stick them long enough to kill him.
Can they? Oh, Trevor.
They're looking for this play onto Trevor as Robbie Bob had gone back. There's going to be the pullback in onto the Cow. Cow, unfortunately, has to be sacrificed for the greater good for the rest of the team to get out of there.
Cookies? I'm surprised you didn't even... Oh, I guess it wasn't up. Okay. Makes more sense. Now they go over for the Mountain Dragon at this point. Denethor sticking around, trying to make sure that Supernova don't do anything rash, but he might get caught.
That actually could be a big pick if they're able to get this kill onto Denethor. Looking for the Rune Prison, the flash in to make sure they can get it. That's a huge shield coming in, but there's a lot of damage burst down onto him with all out on it to Music with a follow-up. Trying to kill off the take while the rest of the team from Winthrop trying to get into the back line, getting a lot of damage onto Quacker. Denethor will finally fall. No! Still alive! No, they got the kill on the Shookies. There it is, finally. Music's able to get the kill, and now Winthrop, you're in a bad position. You've got Denethor. They've got Music here looking for mobility, and mobility ditching his team, saying, I can't help you anymore. Reset City for Music.
Oh my gosh, it's a disaster for Winthrop coming out of this one. They try and hedge their bets, make sure that Supernova can't go for the Baron, but they get picked up. They pick up Denethor, and then the rest of the team too slow. We just get to see Music chase down Denethor on the other side. And well, yes, they should get this dragon. I don't even know if they do it in time. They don't have the DPS.
I don't think they do. And with Supernova getting themselves that Turo Baron buff here, they're TPing in to make sure they get their second dragon of the game. No soul point potential there for Winthrop.
That's huge for Supernova, but again, every single time after last game, Alex, it is so hard to look at Supernova and say, yes, they're going to win this game. They were in a more dominant position than this last game. Now, the difference this time, Supernova have much better scaling elements. The Rise and the Sivir will be giving them tools to play later on in the game. But for now, it is still Winthrop. They still have the tools. It's about whether or not mobility will be able to survive all the incoming damage Supernova can put out, but consistently, it's been feeling as though Supernova, even though they aren't necessarily winning every team fight, playing the map a little bit better, right? Notice the fact that all the outer turrets are down from Winthrop, whereas Supernova still have all of theirs standing.
Well, like we were saying, Winthrop was playing very confidently when it came to a lot of these team fights. The conviction to look for those picks. But as you were just saying, Josh, Supernova have been playing the patient game, setting up the rest of the map slowly, methodically, and assuredly. Because now, look at Sketch, as you talked about, 3 items for him, but they got 3 items for Robbie Bob. They're almost at 3 items for Music as well. These are huge power spikes for these core members of Supernova.
Yeah, I mean, Music into the next item is nice, right? Like, you just survive a little bit longer in the fights.
Viego's fine, yeah.
Yeah, but the Rise, right, that is a huge opportunity. You get that Banshee's Valor or the Cosmic Drive, suddenly ton more ability haze to start playing with. But both sides, they're just jockeying for a vision right now. There are no objectives to play for as the Turo Baron buff is still in Supernova's hands. They haven't gotten a lot off of it just quite yet.
Now they can just play it patiently, though. When you have a Rise, you have a Sivir. Really hard to do much against them because they can just shove in the Laves over and over again. And you're kind of low on that range yourself as the Ahri Zeri composition. So instead, they're looking for these plays on the players like Music. They got a burst, and actually mobility bursts him down before any resets can come through. As Quacker now has got to be careful. Mobility's been free-firing that whole time, though they almost got the kill. They do get one. Sketch with the spell shield tries to get away from Denethor. Does somehow shut down. What in the world?
Denethor?
How do you get a triple kill? Denethor, huge shield, but dies to Quacker. Shookie's the only survivor for Winthrop, but somehow Sketch in dire straits was able to pick up a triple kill.
towards the very end of the Turo Baron buff is when Supernova starts popping off with it. Winthrop tries to go for this play, and here we go. Trevor is chilling in the middle of the wave, waiting. He's like, yeah, this is all you guys. We'll pick this up. We just need to make sure it doesn't slow down any of our minions. They still break into the base with it.
They're going to at least take themselves an inhibitor here in the mid lane, since it's only Shookie's Trickster. He'll spawn up, but there's not really any fight between the two of them to fight back against that of Supernova. They'll chase them out of their base, but now it is in tatters.
Just the fact that it has opened up is going to be making Supernova's job so much easier, but I love this engage off the bat, right? They get onto music, the big important reset champion, but then after that, it's whether or not they can do anything else. As Quacker just runs around, and with Trickster just sitting here in the middle, it is over and over. Every single auto attack means that Olaf continues to stay in the Ragnarok, and then after that, it's just these bounces between the boomerangs, going back, picking up Sword. A triple kill goes over yet again to Sketch. And from that position, right, we were talking about how important mobility could be later on in the game. Now it's starting to look as though Sketch might be able to match him.
Yeah, the fact that you get a triple kill for Sketch when I thought he was going to die before even getting anything, and there was going to be mobility cleaning up that fight, really does turn the tides here for Supernova and gets them in this great position where now mid lane has been taken for themselves. They can wait. It's 2 minutes until the next Baron will spawn, a minute and a half until they can get themselves within that soul point potential.
Yeah. So for Winthrop, as they start thinking about any of these upcoming dragons and the Baron, they got to make sure that they use Trickster to get themselves in. You use all the saplings, but because they're so behind, because they're still down 80 CS at this point in the game, it's a slow-going process as the primary frontline for the team. He needs to be very methodical about how they actually make this happen. And Trevor, not picking up on exactly where Denethor is, that definitely feels like the kind of fight you go for if you had known.
It's one of those tricky ones, right? You don't know if you want to go for that one, because you also don't necessarily know where the rest of the members of Winthrop are. And I feel like it's one of those ones where it's like, yeah, we know that it's a good one to go for, but do members of Supernova, and so they decide not to pull the trigger on that one. Play it a lot more passively, as we are starting to see some of these big spikes come in for Supernova. Death Dance now completed for Quacker, Steric's Gauge, and a stopwatch for Music. A lot of stopwatches actually for Supernova for this upcoming fight that you know is a brewing.
And both teams are here on time, so...
Yeah, look at that. Look for Quacker, but it's hard to kill him right away. They got a huge engage from Trevor. They burst down mobility. And where's your fight now, Winthrop? They've got the Realm Warp and their Lady. They're chasing you down. There goes Sword. It has been cleaved in twine, and same with Trickster. Making a double kill for Sketch, with Supernova only leaving Shookies alive once more.
They shouldn't have the time to actually end the game here, but it is still so much. Oh, they might. They might actually have the time. They just go through this so quickly. Super's going to be ripping through everything. They have the wave here in time. They don't care about the Mountain Dragon. Supernova here to tie up the series.
They want to get us to game 3. They said game 1. I said it at the beginning, but this is how Supernova are feeling. It was a fluke. They were the ones destined to get to the qualification match. They felt confident coming into the day, and they will make this a series, Josh, at 1 apiece.
Great stuff coming in from Supernova, right? It feels as though the teams who are trying to make a lot of these plays start are the ones who are actually fumbling during every single one of these fights. This time it was Winthrop trying to make the fight happen, and they're the ones who end up getting punished for it, whereas Supernova is like, yeah, that's okay, cool. All your crowd control is gone. Well, it is our turn now. Let's go ahead and get this fight started. They swing right on back, and Alex, it was even in the exact same place on the map where the last fight starts and where the game ends.
Yeah, and they pick up that game. They get us to a game 3 tied up at 1 apiece. Winner of game 3 will move on to the qualification matchup. But we are going to toss to a break as we get ready for our Subway halftime refresh with Sierra. Make sure you stay tuned after these advertisements.
Subway refreshed their ingredients, their menu, and now they're slicing their meats fresh. That's why their new Subway Series subs are preferred by this champ.
And this future champ.
Pros who are talking heads prefer fresh sliced turkey.
And pros who use their heads prefer fresh sliced ham.
More deli meats are preferred by this QB.
And preferred by his old backup QB.
And if we prefer it, we know you'll prefer it too. Is this slice as good as your tennis slice?
I can't answer that, but yes.